In our first reading from the book of Leviticus, we get a number of those commandments of how we are to love one another. And there are some rather interesting passages within this that are worth maybe just a little bit of a deeper dive into them. Especially want to focus today on one of those passages, those lines in the middle of our reading, where it says, "You shall not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but you shall fear your God, I am the Lord." And this is kind of an interesting account. You shall not curse the deaf is an interesting thing if you think about it, or you shall not put a stumbling block in front of the blind. And on the face of it, part of it is going to this general theme that you shall love your neighbor as yourself. This idea that if you were deaf or blind, you would not want somebody to curse you or to put a stumbling block in front of you. But there's a little bit more to that passage or that understanding, because you might ask the question, well, why would you want to curse somebody who is deaf in the first place? And the simple answer likely is because they can't hear you. If the deaf person cannot hear you curse at them, they cannot respond in any way. If the blind person, if you put a stumbling block before the blind person, they don't know who did it, and they can't really respond in any way. You are taking advantage of the disadvantaged. And there is an aspect of that that is fundamentally perhaps cowardly, but recognizing that in doing this, in cursing the deaf and putting that stumbling block in front of the blind, you are acting as though there are going to be no consequences to your actions. And God is reminding us here in this verse that even if you think there are no earthly consequences, there are indeed great consequences for you in that spiritual life, consequences that could keep you even out of heaven itself. And some have biblical scholars have used this, "you shall not curse the deaf," to expand on that and say, well, yes, you shouldn't curse the deaf, those who can't respond, those who can't hear, but also to say, well, you should not curse those who cannot hear you curse them. You shouldn't curse those who are far away, those who are not present before you, because that's the same kind of mentality. Why would you curse somebody if they can't really respond? Why would you curse someone if they can't make any counteractions against you? It's that same mentality. It's assuming that your actions have no consequences. And you apply the same principle, that yes, that is still a problem, and indeed a great problem for you. So not only are we not supposed to curse the deaf, we are not supposed to curse those who are not present to hear. But others take it then even that next step further and say, well, if we're not supposed to curse the deaf, those who would not be able to hear, those who themselves perhaps would not be affected by that curse or that insult against them, if it wouldn't affect them and you're still not supposed to curse them, then you really shouldn't be cursing anybody. And that is another way to think about this same passage. If we do not curse the deaf, we shouldn't be cursing those who can't hear, nor should we be cursing anybody at all, or insulting them, or accusing them in that manner, whether they can hear and respond or not, because that is not indeed the heart of the matter, because it does go back to that passage at the end, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And this is connected then into the gospel account. As we hear that great passage in Matthew about the separation of the sheep and the goats. And he says to those sheep, you have done these things. You have assisted me. You have visited the sick and those in prison. You have cared for those in need, providing food and drink, shelter and clothing. You have done all of these things. And they say, well, when did we do this for you? And he says, what you do for the least of my brothers, you do for me. And that is another way of them taking this to the next step. If you curse the deaf, if you put that stumbling block in front of the blind, if you grumble against even those who cannot hear you, if you shout and insult somebody even to their face, what you do to the least of the brothers of Christ, you do unto him. And when we insult them, we are insulting Christ, and we are damaging that relationship with him. But when we care for them, when we provide, when we help them in their guidance, when we protect their dignity and their rights from others who would slander, curse, or insult them, we do it for Christ. As we go forth this Lenten season, part of our response is to pray, increase our prayer, to increase our fasting, our bodily discipline, but also to increase those almsgiving, the ways that we help others. How is the Lord calling you to help your brother, and in so doing, help Christ unto that merit of his grace, unto that eternal salvation?